Every once in a while comes a general-purpose technology that changes everything. At the turn of the 20th century,
All right, buckle up, everybody. Today we're diving deep into the world of AI-powered warfare.
Should be a fun one.
Oh yeah, especially because we're looking at how China's approach is kind of shaking things up a bit, at least compared to how, say, the U.S. and its allies like to play the game.
Right, and to guide us through this whole thing, we've got this, well, let's just say it's a pretty intense article from the Eurasian
Oh,
Times.
you mean the one titled AI War is unsafe, untested, unreliable artificial intelligence, giving China a technological advantage over the U.S. I mean, you don't really see subtlety like that every day, do you?
No, not really, but hey, at least it grabs your attention,
It
right?
definitely does.
And, in a way, that kind of gets to the heart of what the article's worried about. Basically, that China's in such a rush to push ahead with military AI that they might not be, shall we say, prioritizing safety measures quite as much as some other folks might like.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. Because it's not exactly news that China's, a major military power. They've been on the scene for a while. So what makes this AI thing different? What's got everyone so anxious?
I think the speed is a big factor here. The article quotes a few different experts who are pretty concerned that China might be, well, a bit more comfortable with risk when it comes to letting AI actually control, weapon systems and all that.
Hold on. So we're talking about AI that's like actually unreliable, as in could cause a major international incident unreliable.
Yeah, I mean, some experts are definitely suggesting that's a possibility. They actually use those words in the article: unsafe, untested, unreliable. And to really understand why this is causing such a stir, we need to look at how, say, the US and its allies are approaching things. Because for them, rigorous testing is like non-negotiable. And the idea of humans not being involved in those big, life or death decisions, that's a hard no for them.
Okay, so two very different game plans for a game with, let's face it, some pretty astronomical stakes. So why is China seemingly okay with playing so fast and loose?
Well, there are a few theories floating around. One that the article really highlights is that China's dealing with a shrinking workforce right now. It's a demographics thing. So they might be looking at AI as a way to, fill in those gaps down the line, at least when it comes to the military.
Ah, so if you're worried about not having enough soldiers in the future, robots start to look pretty darn appealing.
Exactly.
Makes sense, I guess, in a kind of cold, calculating way.
Yeah.
But it gets even more complicated, right? Because the article also brings up the whole, well, the whole authoritarian regime angle.
Yeah. Not exactly a cheery thought, is it?
Not really.
Yeah.
Especially since, China's government,
Yeah.
it kind of fits that description,
Yeah.
to put it mildly. And the concern is, if they've got AI controlling their military, well, that gives them a whole other level of power, a whole other way to, keep things under their thumb.
Right, exactly. Because you're talking about a military force that's a lot less likely to, question orders or have moral objections or any of that. It's a level of control that, frankly, scares a lot of people.
No kidding. It's like something out of a dystopian novel, except this time it's, playing out in the real world. And it makes you wonder if China's off to the races with this whole move fast and break things strategy. What's to stop everyone else from saying, well, we better catch up, ethics be damned? It's like, someone invented nukes and now everyone's got to have them just in case. Except, with AI, it could be even more unpredictable.
Yeah, that's a disturbing thought. And honestly, that's where this whole idea of AI governance comes into play, trying to get some kind of control over this whole thing before it really spirals.
AI governance. Okay, so that sounds about as thrilling as watching paint dry, but something tells me this is a teensy bit more important in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, maybe not the best branding. I'll give you that.
So break it down for me. What is this AI governance thing, and why should we care about it when we're talking about, potential AI arms races and whatnot?
All right, so imagine this. We've got rules of the road for a reason, right?
Please, don't tell me you're going to make me retake my driving test.
No, not at all. Just think about it. Speed limits, traffic signals, even just those lines painted on the road, it's all there to keep things from turning into a demolition derby, right? It's about making sure everyone's at least kind of sort of on the same page so we don't all crash and burn.
Right. Chaos is generally frowned upon.
Exactly. So AI governance, it's kind of like that, but for artificial intelligence, figuring out the rules of the road for how we develop it, how we use it, especially when we're talking about something as, shall we say, high impact as warfare.
Okay, so setting some ground rules before things go all Terminator on us. But, whose rules? And who gets to play the whole, I don't know, global AI police role?
Ah, the million-dollar questions. And trust me, there are a lot of very smart, very worried people trying to figure that out right now. The article talks about how the U.S., for example, they were really pushing for international agreements on all this, trying to get everyone to agree on what's okay and what's crossing the line, even in a war.
So like a global AI rulebook,
Yeah.
something everyone agrees to follow, even if they're not exactly best buddies at the moment?
That's the idea, yeah.
And is this just talk, or are there actual concrete things they're putting forth?
Oh, no, they've got lists. The U.S. actually put out these 10 measures they see as pretty essential for, responsible development of military AI. Things like making sure there's always a human who can hit the pause button, that we're not letting AI make life or death decisions without a way to, override it if things get squirrely. And, of course, a ton of testing, making sure these things actually work the way they're supposed to. No AI accidentally launching nukes because it got confused or something.
Right. Okay, on paper, all that sounds reasonable. But here's what I don't get. Even if we had this perfect rule book, these perfectly crafted international AI laws, how do you enforce them? It's not like there's a SWAT team of, ethical hackers ready to repel in and shut down rogue algorithms.
You're not wrong. That's probably the biggest hurdle here, the whole enforcement thing. International law, it relies on, well, let's just call it a healthy dose of good faith. The hope is that if you lay out the rules clearly enough and maybe threaten some consequences if those rules get broken, countries are going to think twice about going rogue even if no one's watching them too closely.
So, a bit of a gamble, hoping everyone plays nice because, the alternative is just too awful to contemplate. But let's circle back to China for a sec.
Yeah.
Because the article mentioned this whole summit in Seoul, all about responsible AI in the military.
Right, the Responsible AI in the Military Domain Summit.
Catchy. Anyway, they said China was there, but they didn't actually sign on to the whole shebang, this big 20-clause blueprint that came out of it. So not exactly a ringing endorsement for the whole global rulebook idea, huh?
Yeah, that was definitely noticed. But here's the thing, and I think it's important to point this out. China was at the table. They were there last year when it was held in The Hague, and they were there again this year in Seoul. They're engaged in the conversation even if they haven't said yes to everything just yet.
Okay, so a glimmer of hope, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Did they say why they weren't ready to sign on the dotted line?
Mm-hmm.
What are their hangups?
Yeah, they did, actually.
Mm-hmm.
After the Seoul summit wrapped up, China's foreign ministry, they put out a statement, and they emphasized their commitment to the principle of developing AI for good and highlighted how important a prudent and responsible attitude is toward military AI. They also mentioned that they've already got their own principles for AI governance, which they said, people see as pretty solid internationally.
AI for good. I mean, it sounds lovely, but also kind of vague when we're talking about, weapons that could potentially end civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
But what does good even mean when it comes to war?
See, now that's the crux of it all, isn't it? Trying to pin down those terms, finding some common ground on what's considered, ethical and responsible when you're talking about a technology as powerful and unpredictable as AI. That's the tightrope we're all trying to walk right now.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Where the peg is this technology that's evolving faster than we can even comprehend, and the hole is, well, it's everything we thought we knew about how international relations worked, how to not blow each other up. And the really scary part is we're not even sure if the hole's big enough anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty apt analogy. And honestly, it highlights why this isn't just a conversation for, the tech people or the diplomats. This is something we all need to be thinking about, talking about, because the decisions we make now, they're going to decide what kind of world we hand off to, well, everyone who comes after us.
It's almost like, I don't know, we need a whole new way of talking about this, a whole new vocabulary.
I know what you mean.
Because AI, for good, it's a nice thought, but it kind of falls apart when you're talking about, well, war.
Yeah, it's hard to reconcile, right? This technology that's all about, optimization and efficiency, but then you apply it to something as inherently messy and destructive as war, and it's like, what are we even aiming for here? The article makes it pretty clear. The U.S. and China, they're coming at this from totally different places.
And that's not even counting the fact that here at home, we're all over the map on this, right? Some folks are all about the idea of, robot soldiers fighting our battles for us.
Right.
And then there are others who, well, they're busy having nightmares about Skynet and, the inevitable robot uprising.
I think it's safe to say this whole thing taps into some pretty primal fears, along with, the obvious technological anxieties. But the thing is, we can't just pretend this isn't happening, right?
Right.
This tech, it's advancing whether we're ready for it or not, which means we've got to figure out, like, what role we want to play in all this. And that goes for all of us, not just the people building the algorithms or, negotiating treaties.
Easier said than done when most of us aren't, coding AI in our spare time. So where do we even start? If I'm just tuning into this whole debate now, what's the most important thing to keep in mind?
Well, first things first, don't underestimate your own voice in all this. Articles like the one we've been talking about, the Eurasian Times piece, they're a good place to start. We'll make sure to link it in the show notes. And beyond that, find the experts, the organizations that are really digging into this stuff, and follow their work. And if you're really feeling motivated, reach out to your elected officials. Let them know this is something you care about. You'd be surprised how much even a little bit of public pressure can, like, nudge things in the right direction.
Okay, so stay informed, get involved, make some noise if you have to. Got it. But beyond that, what are the big questions we should all be asking as we try to, I don't know, wrap our heads around this whole new world of AI and warfare?
That's a big one. I think the thing that keeps me up at night is this. How do we balance national security, the very real need to, protect ourselves, with the need to develop this technology ethically? Because it's so easy to get caught up in that whole, like, us versus them mentality.
Oh, yeah.
To see this whole AI thing as just another arms race, another way to get ahead. But if that's the only way we're looking at it, we're going to miss the bigger picture, and we might end up creating something that, well, it might not be in anyone's best interest in the long run.
Like that saying, right? If you build a weapon powerful enough to end all wars.
You might just end up ending a whole lot more than that.
Exactly. And with AI, those risks, they're not hypothetical anymore. We're talking about systems that could be making life or death decisions without, a human being able to step in and say, hold on, that's not right, at least not yet anyway.
Yeah, the pace of all this is something else, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
So it's about asking the tough questions, even if we don't like the answers, even if it makes things more complicated. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about winning wars. It's about what kind of world we want to live in.
Well said. It's about making sure technology serves us, not the other way around.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh.
Well, that was a lot. A huge thank you to you for, breaking it all down for us. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for another deep dive. Remember, stay curious out there.